Discussing Dyslexia with Katelyn and Dawn Coker.
Hi, I'm Katelyn.
And I'm Dawn.
And welcome back to another Discussing Dyslexia video. Today, we're going to be talking about all of the outside help I received. And when we say outside, we mean like outside of the school and public school system resources. And these were all just extra remediational approaches. So to give you like some reference, I was in elementary school when I was receiving all this remediation. But one thing I really want everyone to take home is that everyone gets diagnosed at different points in their lives. So you might be going through this process like in elementary school, like me. You might be going through it as a middle schooler, you know, just different points of their lives. And we know some people, right, Mom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even adults that are
Even
going
adults.
through remediational processes. So
Right.
mm-hmm. It's never too late to improve your knowledge or to relearn how to read. It's just bettering yourself. So there's no God-given timeline here.
Right. Yeah. As soon as you figure out you are dyslexic, as soon as you can get the help, however you can get it, that's the most important thing.
Okay. So let's do this thing. The first real thing I remember was like a private tutor. This was something that you had set into place long before I was even diagnosed. You realized I was falling behind and you made me meet with a private tutor. Her name was Chrissy. Could you talk us through, it's funny, her name's Chrissy. She's now my aunt, but so it was weird calling her Chrissy again, but can you talk us through what you did, like why you thought I needed a tutor and what she really did to help out?
Yeah, we went after kindergarten and throughout first grade, you know, we knew you were struggling to learn to read and sight words and spelling and all of the things that go along with being dyslexic, although we didn't know at the time you were dyslexic. We just thought maybe, you know, you were a little bit slower learner as far as reading goes. And we were kind of monitoring signs and symptoms to see if maybe there was something more to it. So fortunately at the time, my brother's girlfriend at the time, now his wife, now my sister-in-law, she was a school teacher and master level school teacher, and she had taught elementary school and taught reading and was familiar with dyslexia and reading issues. So we kind of brought her on board to start kind of helping with remediation and kind of doing some supplementary work and help trying to get you caught up in reading. And then once we actually had the diagnosis, she actually stayed on and continued to be a private tutor. And I think the importance of private tutor is not only for you in helping you stay on top of homework, stay on top of reading and continuing to close that gap in reading, but I think tutors also give parents a break. It's really hard a lot of times for parents of dyslexics who have to spend a lot of extra time with their child doing homework to have that break. And I think it's good for you to have someone other than the parent, other than me all the time, doing the homework with you. And I just think it was a nice balance for you and me to have that additional help. Chrissy was, again, a teacher. She worked in the elementary school district. She understood processes of learning to read and using a multisensory approach.
So I want you to talk about that a little bit more. I know that not everyone has an amazing teacher friend or even an amazing aunt like me. So where can other people find a tutor, and what are the qualifications you were looking for and that other people looking for a private tutor should be looking for? Because let's face it, a teenager, looking for an extra buck is not going to be the private tutor that you're going to want.
Right, right. If you know you're dyslexic, and even if you don't know you're dyslexic, it's important to have somebody that understands the importance of teaching using a multisensory approach. We're talking about able to take a lesson or an assignment, and this is true of if you're having trouble with math or whatever, but being able to teach the concepts and teach the assignments using kinesthetic awareness, movement, using tactile, touch, auditorily, as well as visual. So somebody who is well versed at or not afraid to use that kind of approach in teaching is really what you need. That's the only way really dyslexics learn. And really, it's a better way of learning for anybody.
Right.
You know, but especially important for a dyslexic child. And usually that, you know, or the tutor came, you know, just once or twice a week, again, on the off nights that you weren't at the learning center, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And also, again, just to kind of give me some help. Your tutor was so good though. She even went to some of your extracurricular activities, and you were involved in theater. And when we knew you were going to have a long period of time where you weren't going to have to be on stage, she'd come to the theater and find a quiet spot and do tutoring, because we'd be at the theater all night and still needed to get homework done. So, you know, finding a good tutor is key, you know.
And kids remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like a teacher. It's someone they're going to look back and be thankful they had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think I always, you know, get the question when I tell people I had a private tutor. Of course, the financial side of it comes up. It is a financial burden and an obligation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always get the question, like, what do you remember? And like, do you think it was beneficial? I always tell people that extra help is always beneficial. This is outside help, so it's always beneficial if you can afford it. However, there are always options if you can't. There are also amazing teachers that will do outside tutoring for free.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other programs out there that will help you.
I think if you don't have, you know, access to a private tutor, I mean, you had one of your spotlights on Chloe Schaffner when she was there. She talked about a teacher who would meet with her, you know, before school, after school. You know, I think it's important that you just try to find whatever resource you can to get that extra outside of school help.
Right.
And
And
again,
I was just blessed with the opportunity to be able to financially afford a private tutor.
mm-hmm. Well, and like I said, she didn't charge a whole lot because she was
Family.
dating my brother, but so got lucky there. But
It's funny though, because again, like people always ask what you remember. And I remember way more what she taught me than a lot of what the other teachers have taught me. And again, obviously she's my aunt and obviously she's family and she's important to me because of that. But has a very special place in my heart because she taught me the most in the shortest amount of time.
mm-hmm.
I will never forget how to multiply the way she taught me how to multiply. That wasn't something a teacher taught me, that's something she taught me. But also, again, she would come to all this stuff. So we had this bond, like she was a friend that taught me. To have that relationship is amazing because there were times I didn't want to learn. I just need to thank her time and time again for the patience she had because she saw the best of Katelyn and the worst of Katelyn. You know, there were times I was kicking and screaming and did not want to do anything. And she had that patience. She would wait there for God knows how long for me to calm down and to do the work. I think the biggest thing is she had this unique, like, I would love to be in one of her classes just as a regular student. She has this amazing ability to never make anyone feel dumb or insecure. She never looks as a lesson as knowledge, but as a challenge. Yes, this is going to be hard. Yes, we are going to figure this out together. So that way it'll be easy. So just the level of excitement having someone like that in my life brought to change school into a positive thing is amazing. And I hope everyone can have a educational figure like I had with her.
Well, I think too, she was very instrumental in helping us through the diagnosis, was able to provide valuable insights into the when we got to evaluate it too. So I mean, you know, it was very lucky that we had that opportunity to have a private tutor. But again, I would recommend, you know, for sanity of parents as well as yourself. I mean, and you know, it's a good idea to have someone other than just parents in the house having to take on that role of educator after school.
Oh,
So
yeah. All right. Is there anything else regarding private tutors you think we need to touch on? I think we really kind of did that.
yeah.
The only other thing I can think of is, like, obviously she came a lot more often before my diagnosis and before I started up with a dyslexia center. So
Mhm.
after a few years of working with this private tutor, I got my diagnosis and I started going to the dyslexia center. And the nights that I wasn't at this center were the nights that my private tutor would come, Chrissy. And the center was just another amazing resource that contributed to my personal learning. And I just know that you were very much more versatile. I have the personal experiences from there and why it's near and dear to my heart, but I would love for you to give the quick explanation of who they are, what they do. So who is the Dyslexia Awareness Network?
Well, the Dyslexia Awareness Network is the former 32 Degree Masonic Learning Center. Basically, when you were diagnosed in May, and I happened to be reading the newspaper one day and saw an article about a new dyslexia center opening up in our community. At the time, it was the 32, degree Masons. It was an organization, philanthropic organization run by the Scottish Rite Freemasons of the Northern Masonic jurisdiction. Basically, they started that in 1994. They started these learning centers. And they partnered with the Massachusetts General Hospital's Language Disorders Unit, and they launched this endeavor to try to ease the lifelong challenges that were faced by children with dyslexia. I mean, it really focused on dyslexia. It was kind of a groundbreaking endeavor at the time. Until the program was launched, there was no other national charity that had adopted dyslexia as a major concern and saw the critical need for that. So they made a pledge. They decided that they were going to help children with dyslexia learn to read and reach their full potential. They were going to help families with the frustration, the guilt, and disruption that's caused by dyslexia. They wanted to help communities by developing learning centers to help children succeed in and out of school. The program's nationally recognized. It's no longer called what it was originally called. It's now Children's Dyslexia Centers. You can find it, all of their locations. They're in 13 states, primarily in the East Coast and Northeast, and somewhat in Northern Midwestern area. So we were just very fortunate to have one here in Peoria that opened up in July of 2006. And you were, at the time, one of their youngest participants. You actually started their program in August of 2006, and you were there through May of 2009. And basically, they use a multisensory approach to teaching reading. They offer tutors in Orton Gillingham approach to reading, which is, again, a multisensory approach. They tutor, but they also train tutors. What was good for our community is that a lot of the original tutors, including yours, were teachers in the school districts, private as well as public, current and former teachers. So what was really cool is that these teachers were trained to be tutors at the center, but they were taking that knowledge, that multisensory approach to reading, back into the classrooms that they were working in.
And they didn't just do any teacher. Like, these teachers were amazing, males and females. Just,
They had to go through a lot of training, and it was all volunteer
yes.
time, and
just
they weren't
amazing.
getting paid.
Like,
And they did strongly dedicated to helping kids learn. And at the time, when we were involved with the program, because it was at the time sponsored by the Freemasons. Again, the center we have here now in Peoria is no longer associated with the Children's Dyslexia Centers. They've become their own not-for-profit and their own center. They do the same things that you had the privilege of going through. I just lost my train of thought.
I can speak on the tutors for a quick minute while
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
read that. But
Go ahead.
again, just amazing people. I worked with 2 tutors. One you've already met is Stacy. She did a live. And then also Mary, I worked with first. And just these people not only wanted to be invested in your lives, a lot of them went to my shows, my extracurriculars. They were as invested in me as a person as they were my educational growth. And that was across the board. You don't find people like that anywhere, but this center is full of them.
Mhm.
Just amazing people.
Right.
And imagine how that's going to touch on the lives of all of these kids and young adults that are.
Well, I think the other important thing too is that part of their mission, and I know even the mission of the Dyslexia Center here in Peoria, is to create community awareness. And I think I know that the center here in Stacy that's involved with our center has done a lot with impacting local legislation or state legislation regarding dyslexia. At the time when we participated, we were lucky enough that it was free to us.
Yes.
They said the average cost per student was about $5,000 a year. We did not have to pay a dime. We had to make a commitment though, like we had to make sure that you were there when you were scheduled to be there. You couldn't
Every
miss.
Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. That's engraved in my brain. I can't do anything on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
At that time, right? And it was always for an hour.
Yeah.
And you couldn't miss more than a certain amount, or you got kicked out because they had kids waiting. Like, there was a wait list. Once the center opened up, they didn't have the capacity to have and help at the time all the kids that started coming out of the woodwork, basically. And I remember a lot of people, once you started going there and I started talking, there were other kids that we knew that followed, that were diagnosed and used the resources of that center.
Yeah.
And they could only accommodate so many. And typically it was a 2-year program. You were there almost 3 years, more because I think of how young you were. But I know even when Stacy was on, she talked about you got to go further in the program than a lot of kids do in that 2 years because you started so young and were able, kind of like a sponge, able to pick it all up. But maybe you can talk a little bit more about like actually what they did at the center and
obviously they use the I always mispronounce it, the Orton Gillingham methods. And what I remember were there were books and different sensory methods of reteaching you the fundamentals of reading. So like I remember going into a classroom, there was a computer in some, there wasn't in others, and there were little things like little riddles, little songs about like I goes before E except after C. Like that is always in my mind, just little things like that that just really reteach you how to read and how to write. And it was a lot of different booklets with cards doing different words and sentences and constantly re-breaking them down using this multisensory method. And there
Like
was
you would
always
write
little,
write in sand and write with
yes,
different, you always, that was a tactile. There was sand that you would write letters and combinations in, and there's just a lot of different sensory ways of learning how to read.
right.
So
So they
yeah.
always had an agenda every day you were there. When you came back, it was constantly growing and it was personalized to that student. That's why you were with
Mhm.
one tutor, because you were
Mhm.
constantly growing using these different methods. And they would do like different checkpoints to see where you had retained and didn't. And it got to the point where I remember we started figuring out ways to start reading books. So it's funny, when I first went there, it was like, these are the letters, these are the way the letters are formed, and it was a lot of sensory ways to learn the alphabet. So then to leave there 3.5 years later, reading books was just amazing. And I think too, they're always looking at growth all over. So for me, I was very much into theater and things like that. So they knew that I had an outspoken personality. So they really helped me with advocacy too. They
Mhm.
really did sit and have conversations with you. And I think the one way that they really did that was had me do speeches at different events and things like that, which I know that I was so young and I had gone so far in it. So I was a really good candidate to do all these speeches about it. But it really turned me into an advocate for dyslexia in general. I think that's also why we started this, was a
Mhm.
big, is has a lot to do with the center.
Yeah, we feel I I'm a person of faith, so it's one of those where it was like, open up the paper, see this article, God's telling me this is, we've got to check this out, we've got to do this for you, we've got to get you involved. And I think the cool thing is like I said, other people there, those centers still exist. And I know I said there, these particular ones from the children's dyslexia centers.org are primarily Northeast and Northern Midwest, but that I am sure there are other centers. There's the International Dyslexia Association. They would be a resource for maybe finding one of these learning centers in your community. And I think they go beyond just teaching you how to read. They give you tools to learn how to read, but I remember things like you're learning the where words came from and their origins,
Yes,
and
yes.
how different endings meant different things. I mean, things I never really knew about the English language. And I think what's kind of frustrating but also interesting is, as a parent, I understand that if there's been studies and research done that says if this type of way of learning to read, this multisensory approach to reading, if it was done in schools everywhere from the ground up, the it works with non-dyslexic and dyslexic kids. Non-dyslexic kids
Right.
learn, it doesn't hamper their learning ability, or their ability to learn to read. It actually enhances it. And we could close the gap naturally
Yeah, I
between
was
dyslexic
reading,
and non-dyslexics if every school would adopt a similar approach.
right. I remember being frustrated too. I was reading an article when I started college that was like, we've updated how we teach math. I know that's a
Mhm.
frustration. Like, okay, boomer, you don't know how to teach me math anymore, but we have not updated how we teach reading in
No, we've
centuries.
updated science, we've updated our technology, but
But
we have
other
not.
other countries have now, and they have adapted similar approaches. And now
Mhm.
we're starting to see a giant gap. And it's like, if it helps everyone, I was reading an article that if they started this in 2020. Now, of course, I was reading the article probably in about 2017, 2018. Like if we start this approach in 2020, by 2030, we could see that 1 in 5 case of dyslexia move to a 1 in 15.
Mhm. Oh, it would, it just, yeah, I mean, it would, it's a reading specific disability. And if you can level the playing field by teaching reading the same, using a multisensory approach to everyone, you know, there's a good chance that you could really start eliminating, you know, the whole concept of dyslexics. But, you know,
I do need to elaborate real fast. My 1 in 5 to 1 in 15, that is like diagnosed cases. Dyslexia is a real thing. It is 1 in 5. That's never going to go away. That's always going to be 1 in 5. However, diagnosed cases, it's going to be a lot less. It's going to affect dyslexics a lot less. And it's going to get to the point where it's going to get harder to detect. Which,
well, yeah, because like you said, there's that spectrum, you know, and you've got kids who on one end who, you know, mild dyslexic, you know, and you've got, you know, everything in between. So, you know, if you can start teaching that reading, you can probably minimize the effects on those that mild to, you know.
When I said that though, I could see all the tutors go, no. I was like, let me retract that a little bit. But so how do people find centers like these? What's stuff they can do?
Like I said, resources like International Dyslexia Association, check your state. If you live in the Northeast, Rhode Island, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, I know there's centers in Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, Illinois, you know, any of those other states, you're going to need to kind of do your homework. There's probably a center. The main thing is, you know, there are still people out there though that are tutoring and have centers that help dyslexics that are not using multisensory approach. And you just want to make sure that that they're using the Orton Gillingham or a similar multisensory approach to reading. Otherwise, it is not going to be beneficial. Unfortunately, I do know now, like the center that we went to in Peoria, and many other centers, it's not free. We were very, very fortunate that we were able to have that service for free. And it can be expensive. That's unfortunately you know.
A lot of those centers though will have scholarship opportunities. Yes. And if you are a family like ours, I always support those scholarships and always support, because they really, while they are not free, it is because they don't have the means to make that for every student. So your help with those centers, maybe that's just me, but they helped me. I'm going to continuously help them in any shape, way, form, and fashion. If you receive help in any way, free or not free, get behind those. The only way to help solving the issue is to get behind it.
Right. And again, we're talking 1 in 5 kids, you know, that are in a classroom right now and struggling. And, you know, and maybe, like I said, we can create some more awareness here. And those dyslexia centers, that's what they're doing, is they're creating the awareness. They're trying to close the gap. They're trying to get these kids diagnosed, if nothing else, and create the awareness of what dyslexia is. So highly recommend that.
Is there anything you would like me to touch on about the center or anything like that?
Do you have any special memories? I remember it not being a negative thing.
No.
I remember I never had a problem taking you and dropping you off to go to tutoring. I mean, you always looked forward to it.
Because they were invested, because they made it fun. I remember the first time I really remember the Oscars. My tutor, Mary, brought a chocolate Oscar for me to take home because the Oscars were that night after tutoring. She didn't have to do that. That was out of her pocket. But I had told her I was very excited to see the Oscars. It was my first time. Me and mom were staying up, and she just made that experience. She knew I probably didn't want to be in tutoring that day. She knew that I was probably going to be distracted, but she took it upon herself to make that a memorable experience. And that happens all the time. I remember my other tutor, Stacy, coming to my performances and talking with them. Like, I was in show choirs and stuff. She would randomly be there with her kids. I remember meeting her kids, meeting her family. Her family became our family. And I mean, they were babies at the time, and comparatively, like, I was young too, but just the fact of like meeting them on that personal level made it so much more exciting to be able to go catch up with them.
I think the other thing I remember about the center is they offered, they would do a lot of extra educational things for parents.
They also do social events. I remember going there,
social
and
events,
brunches and things like that. I'm sure they were fundraisers.
For fundraising and awareness, yeah. But like they would, like I know I have notes in my big binder from a IEP workshop that we went to at the center. But they were also tried to help parents navigate the school system and how to advocate for your child. And like you said, they taught you how to advocate for yourself. So they were more than just a tutoring center for you. They were really involved and invested in remediation of dyslexia. So
yeah. I also remember they left like every class on a cliffhanger. Like, well,
so you want to come back?
Yes, like you did.
Yeah.
Or they like, we're telling you a story about their person. I remember one, it wasn't a tutor I had, but we would have like meetings with the person that would run the center. And she would come in and check in every once in a while. And every time you would talk with her, she would tell you like a personal story about her life, but she would never finish it. So you always wanted to go in and talk with her just to, get more of the story. If it was a true story or not, I have no clue. But that was something I look forward to, was seeing if she was in her office so I could get another little part of her story, and just little things like that.
I know, it was almost a sad day when you graduated. It was kind of, and I can remember honestly being nervous about it. You probably
I can sense that. I've always
but,
been able to sense your nerves.
Yeah, I mean, it was one thing we had for 2.5 years that I knew. No, it was 2.5.
That was 3.
Yeah, almost 3. No, it was almost like 2.5. It was almost 3. August of 2006 to May of 2009.
No, 6 to 7, 7 to 8,
No,
8 to 9, right?
But May of 2009. So you'd have June, July, August. So it was 2 years and 9 months, okay? If you want to get technical, almost 3 years, yeah. And I just remember that, they were just such a resource for me and a resource for you outside of school, that you could bounce ideas off if you were having issues at school, if you were struggling with something at school, we could address it. And it was just really nice to have that for as long as we did, and not a little nerve-wracking. But the cool thing is we're still in touch with them today, and I still bounce ideas off, and we still talk about situations that come up. And
I am Facebook friends with like all of my tutors. Like, that's amazing. The fact that they still want to know what I'm up to is crazy.
Yeah. So I highly recommend trying to find a outside tutoring center that specializes in dyslexia. Again, children'sdyslexiacenters.org. If you're in the Northeast or Northern Midwest, International Dyslexia Association would be one to look at, or your own community, ask around your community. There may be, a center there that you're not aware of.
Some things I do want to give some like other resources to check locally. I know that nationwide there are chapters called Eye to Eye. What
Yes.
I was not fortunate enough to be a part of one, but I have done my research. I've tried to start one. They are amazing. What they do is it's dyslexia specific. I believe there's some other ones that they've now migrated in, but it started off dyslexia specific. What they do is they take middle school and elementary school students with dyslexia, and they pair them with a successful high school and college kid, and they go into a classroom, a school, a college room, and desensitize the learning environment by making it fun, but it also gives them a contact and a mentor to look up to and to hang out with that has been in their shoes, and they just do amazing things. So look up Eye to Eye. You can find a local chapter on there. And then also some of the things that we've really done in the past is we've done a lot of subscription-based stuff. And there are a lot of networks out there. There's a lot of like support groups out there. Obviously, we've created one, but I think there was one that was in our hometown that was like Dyslexia Network, something or other, that was just a support group. I wish I remembered the name of that. But they went to like baseball games and things like that, and that was really cool. I think I sat on like a board of it for a year or so, but it was very cool. Another thing,
I think the mentoring thing is a great thing. An outside resource of school, being able to communicate or have a resource outside of school to talk to. I know you personally have been a mentor for several dyslexics, and to have that resource outside of school that you can talk to, that understands what you're going through in the classroom, who's been there, done that. If you can find that for your child, that is incredible.
and I am happy to be that. I've always wished that I had one, but I felt like I was setting the path for so many that I give. So many people say you need to stop doing this, but I never will. When I meet a fellow person in my same situation, I always give them my personal contact information. I'm not going to put that on this platform, but if you need that and checking in with someone helps, or I used to tell people, let's go get coffee, let's go get food. Like, if you need that, I always give out my contact information. And I now know a group of people that will do that as well. If you're needing a male figure or someone in high school or something like that, that you want someone closer in age, like we have those resources through this page. Please email us.
I highly recommend that. Parents can only comfort so much, and you get into that parent-child relationship, and their parent, child, you don't understand. Do I don't know. I've not been there, done that, so I don't really. But to have your child be able to talk to somebody who's been there and experienced the same frustrations and the same issues is huge, and it makes them not feel alone, because I think a lot of times, even as a parent, I felt alone sometimes, going through it, and I'm sure you did too. So
yeah. But also, like, again, Eye to Eye creates a positive learning environment. Extracurriculars do that too. Finding friends that aren't dyslexic, that are, you'd be amazed at how many people are like, man, that English test was really hard. And it makes you realize, oh, well, if it's hard for them, maybe I'm doing okay. Maybe I'm doing all right. So just surrounding yourself by great people, get involved with extracurriculars. Always ask. Subscription services, so many of like Audible books, things like that, offer discounts for people that need it due to disabilities. Audible.com did one for a long time. I'm not sure if they still do it, but also there's one called Everyone Reads. That's a big one. McGraw-Hill, it's called myheeducation.com. You can do one through there and they give a discount because they want to help. Are there any other ones, Mom, you can think of? I know we just did a big live this last Sunday, but
you mentioned them there. Yeah, but those are resources outside of the classroom. I mean, those are, when you would have longer novels and books to read. You know, I mean, you tried to read, and you would read some of it as a, non-dyslexic would, but having the audio part of it, again, that's that multi-sensory approach to learning. That's just what has to happen. And those were invaluable to have access to not just the textbooks, but to the different, books and things that you had to read. I mean, there's no way you would have gotten them done at the pace that you read. So, and comprehended them well enough to take a test or do an assignment. So the audiobooks are huge. And it's not cheating.
No.
You're not cheating.
Well, I also yes, you're not cheating in the classroom. No, it levels the playing field, but also don't be afraid to use your accommodations in everyday life. It doesn't just affect you in the classroom. It's not like, oh, I'm leaving the classroom. It does, it's gone.
I'm not a dyslexic anymore.
Right. There were so many times, I know, again, I feel like we're just hitting the nail with this because we just touched on it this Sunday, but there were times where I did theater, I did music. So many people want you to sight read and do it on the spot. And I love people that try. It's not going to happen. Take it from me. Please take it from me. I've tried. I have failed miserably. Talk to people. Say, this affects me. It's never going away. How can I do the best job and show you that I can do it? Help me out. Don't be afraid. I think too, I think back of I had a male friend in high school that was a part of the football team, and they would do all these plays and stuff, and he'd get them confused. On the board, he was literally messing them up. I don't understand it. Maybe we can get him on here to talk about it, but he was 2 years younger than me. So I think he's a senior now. So I think it would be interesting to talk to him about it. But he had to sit there and tell his coach, I either need to have these written out and I need to study them, because sitting around in a projector, I don't know them. I know them, but I don't know them. So you got to advocate for yourself in every sense of life. Mm-hmm. I am now entering the job market. You bet that I have had internships and stuff that I've had to advocate for myself. I can do this. Again, please create a social media post. Go do this, go do that. I can do it. I will do it very well for you. But you need to help me so I can help you, type of thing. Is it okay if you look it over before it's posted? While they're going to be upset about it, maybe they'll understand in the long run. This is a great post, better than something they could have done. But a spelling error on a company site, or, hey, can I have the other intern look over it?
Right.
You just have to advocate for yourself in everyday life. It's never going to go away. So that's a part of living with it, is adapting and refiguring it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think, to kind of sum things up, I think, it's important, again, outside resources outside of school. You're going to need, you just have to come home from school, and homework is going to take 2 or 3 times longer than the non-dyslexic. So having access to tutor, or to be able to, one, give parents a break, give you a break from parents, because it's grueling at times, that is huge. Being able to get into a center that teaches reading multisensory, regardless of your age. I've heard of adults utilizing these centers who are diagnosed as an adult. You don't have to get into them young. I mean, get into them at any age and utilize that resource. It may not be free, but it would be worth the investment, to yourself to be able to do that. Using audiobooks and other things that are available online. And, again, making sure that you're using your accommodations in everyday life too. I mean, if you need them in the academics world, you're probably going to need some in the social world, because dyslexia just doesn't affect your academics. So
one thing that just popped into my head, I'm sure this is completely random, but I remember learning a lot of life lessons about dyslexia through a novel. It was the like Hank Zimmerman books. Am I saying that right?
Hank Zips. Oh, the ones that Henry Winkler writes.
Maybe it is Henry. Yes, I think you're right.
Okay, Henry Winkler.
But
Frank Zipser. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
They were short chapter books, maybe 4th, 5th grade level, that I read later in life. I was delayed in reading, but it was fun. It was a novel. I think it was like a murder, like not murder. It was like a mystery series, and you'd be
No, I
so
don't think they're the
surprised.
same one, so yeah. I'm not sure which one
There were
you're
so
talking about.
many. There were so many of them, but the one that's ringing in my head was a mystery, and the amount of life lessons taught in that book, just dealing with dyslexia on a daily basis, because it's written by a dyslexic about dyslexia.
Okay.
Through
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah, Henry Winkler has a series of books,
Yes.
and he has documented a lot of his experiences with dyslexia growing up. He was not diagnosed till he was an adult. So he's gone back and kind of reminisced about his experiences growing up with dyslexia. And it is a good resource outside of school. It's a good read, a fun read for kids who are dyslexic. And
I'll be honest, I detest them for a while. I was like, no. Well, I want to say it was like middle school when I started actually reading them again, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
Some things we have coming up this week is we have another live on Sunday at 7 p.m. We're going to be talking about brain breaks. Again, turning that learning environment into a positive space. We're going to talk about the importance of it, have some guests talking about it. This one, honestly, is not just specific to dyslexia. It's important for all kids. You know, speaking from experience, our family struggles with mental health, and it's helped there. So it helps in multiple different case scenarios. Then we're going to spring back into middle school memories and kind of the differences that we experienced in our next talking video. That'll be released on Tuesday. If you have any questions or you just want to get into contact with us, our link tree is below in the comments and should be showing up on the screen. Our link tree also has our email address, so please look that up, email us. We would love to get in touch with you. Please like, share, and comment, share the message. Go ahead, Mama.
Well, before we go, I just want to say, because tomorrow is a very special day, it will be your 22nd birthday. So happy birthday.
Thank you.
Tomorrow, and enjoy your day.
22 years of showing dyslexia who's boss.
There you go. I like it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great night, guys. Hopefully see you on Sunday.
Thanks for joining us.